Right, it was hard to show you, but I finished the interior by making the control column you can see and the rudder pedal. Those are all out of brass and some bendy wire, like fuse wire, thin fuse wire, about a 0.5 millimeter in diameter. And I also put in little pulleys. There's a set on that side and a set on the other side. There's also that pulley in the middle. The pulley in the middle is for that came in the kit. That's a pulley for the out of paper. And then I have wires that you can hardly see, control wires that go to the back underneath where the seats are going to go and across, and then up on the stick. And so that's the interior as it is. I'm going to add the seats, I think, after I skin everything to make sure it all looks even. I might have to sort of adjust the seat locations to make it look good to the eye. But there's the tub. I pulled the little pieces of easy line out the back and glued them there. So what's next is to close this little guy up, which just requires some glue, just as before, on the base and along the sides. And this actually, I put it on kind of awkwardly. It really just, the base of it is flush. I didn't even think of that. There is a line on the bottom of this piece with the shelves that shows where it's supposed to go. So I'm carefully aligning it. What I should have done is set the thing flat on the board and just squish it up against, because then it'll be fine. As it is, I made it work, but I didn't think about it until I was all done. But it all goes together. Everything fits nice. You make sure it's all squeezed together correctly. Add little tweaks here and there, a little bit more glue here and there. Make sure nothing is twisted, because this does have to be square, because that's how the side skins are going to fit on. You want them to look nice. But there she is, all together. And I'm sure if I knew more about the interior, I could put a lot more stuff on there. I just don't know anything about the interior. I did also find out from a fella, I believe in Germany. Oh yeah, I'm taking that off, just that little keel, just to make sure it sits flat. That there were wheels for the control column and also sticks. So I'm sticking with the stick as it came, and I'm hoping that Orlik did better homework than I did. So now I am just taking the plunge and putting that bulkhead up against the previous bulkhead. Just trying to make sure, again, that it's all square. You don't want the cockpit to be kittywampus. You want it to be nice and even, because all this is going to be important when it comes to adding the rest of the decking and things. And I use these flat tweezers a lot to squeeze things together to get the glue to set. And those work really nice, because in fact, you have some real long ones, like we have some at school for dissecting things. Those, you get your hand on those would be really nice, long and thick, and they put a lot of basic pressure all the way along, and they won't damage the paper. Sort of the pressure is spread out a little bit, so they work really nice. I'm just making sure that everything is going to dry, be nice and solid in there. And there's the beginning of the cockpit tub. And boy, it looks neat. And later on I'll show you how to put on the other side, the right side, from scratch. Making sure that piece is all in there. Just making sure it's all good. So I decided to go ahead and put glue on this gray sub skin. And like I said, we're going to show you how that all goes together on the other side. And put on the front outer skin, because that'll really finish it off. Fits really nice. These pieces, of course, goes without saying, have been cut out, and then the edges have been colored with grayish blue, and then also something that looks like wood with my little markers. And then I just glued these up here on together. Suppose you could wait till it's all done to do this. My thought was, since it's basically like 3 layers of paper, it's pretty thick at that point, and it might be better to have it as thick layer like that, so that when you put it on the skeletons, maybe they won't wobble around so much. If it's just a single layer, it might. I don't know. Anyway, see, it worked. I probably could do it several different ways. Again, making sure that everything is tight, making sure everything is straight, and everything looks really good. Everything seems to line up, at least the way I think it should line up. I guess we'll find out when we put the rest of it on. And anything that's a little bit wonky or a little bit extra, you can touch that up with paint, or you can touch it with a little extra paper. That little piece, for instance, is sticking on as white. That's a piece of the former, so I'm not sure if I had that right, but I can fix that. That's certainly not the end of the world. But then the front piece will go on like that when it's time. And boy, it's getting exciting at this point. Looking really nice. I can't get over how pretty the wood is. The wood print on there. It looks really, really good. So that's one side. So just to show you, here's the other side from scratch, and it's all open. And what you do on here, which was interesting, you've got these multiple layers, these gray pieces, and there's an A and a B, and they overlap, notice. That piece just butts up, but the bottom piece you're going to see it's going to overlap a little bit. But that's the A portion is the outside, and it'll fit on like that. And then the A portion on the rear, which is down there that I'm picking up now, slides underneath and is going to go underneath and basically overlap everything. It'll be really good. So we'll put this together and show you. But this is how I did the other side. So not to leave people in the dark, this is how it worked. I've never done this before. Usually it's just like a single sheet of paper, but this is essentially 3 pieces of paper, and it makes a nice thick solid deck. And so it's going to help immensely, I think, with strength. So I put my glue on there, and then I always squish it out with my finger. Suppose you could use a brush if you were so inclined. And I just stick these pieces together, making sure that the A portion is on the inside. Wait, I got to think about that. You look at the directions and figure out which side goes where. The A is on the in or the B is on the inside. But you get that together. And then I make sure it's flat on the bottom. Then I go ahead and put that piece on, and you can see that's where this other little piece is going to slide. It's hard to see with the white paper because you can't really tell, but that just slides up right there and butts right up against that piece. And that's an overlap that's going to make it nice and strong. And you just make sure it's even, which it is. And as long as you cut everything right, everything should turn out nice. So there's that piece. And now I guess it's the B is on the inside, and the A portion is on the outside. So this last A portion is the back end. And then I smear out my glue, even it up a bit, and slide that piece right on against that line. It butts up right against that ridge. And then you just drop it down, and then you got time to smush it around a little bit. Not a lot of time, but it's so even and so well done in the kit that everything fits nice. And so there it is. So that's sort of a sub skin that goes on first. So I did it sort of in stages. I do it up to about that middle former and along the top ridge there. And then I put my piece along there. And this just, you make sure, in my case, I guess it's supposed to be how I did it so far, is you can see where it's supposed to line up. There's a curve up there, right there, where the trailing edge of the wing is going to go. And then I make sure that my top is against that piece. So kind of adjust it, see, and squish it. Make sure it goes and is nice and doesn't shift at all. And then just make sure the glue touches and gets tacky. And I'm just trying to make sure that everything is even again, that I don't have something that's going to, when it's glued in there, is going to be way off, slide. If it's off by a 72nd of an inch on one side, it's going to be off by a lot the other side. So you just make sure it's right. I lift that piece up, put some glue on there, put some glue on that middle former right there where my finger is, and then I slid this piece right down, same thing, making sure in this case it's flush, which I think is how it's supposed to go. I guess we'll find out when I put the top decking on and the bottom. Again, there might be some tweaking or some touch-up we'll have to do, but this seems to make sense so far in terms of how it looks to me. Looks self-explanatory. Slide that on, and I'm using my tweezers again to put these together, just to make sure that I got good contact. That's very important. And all along there, and once you squeeze this glue together, it's together. It's usually not going to come apart. Even when it's going around curves, it sets pretty dang fast. I really do like that glue. I like it a lot. I got my Spitfire shirt. Shoot, I need a Lohner, whatever how you pronounce this kind of a seaplane shirt. That would be beautiful. So now I'll put on the outside skin. And again, I just put it on from the bottle, the glue, and then I smear it on with my finger. See that line right there is where it's going to butt against. And do the same thing. Put the tail section on there, and just I line it up with that line first. And there's a little curve on the top that makes it so that it is actually following this really pretty curve on the top of the decking. And then I just make sure with my thumb, see I'm pulling down to make sure that it's actually even with the top. Once it's even and you kind of smooth it out, it starts to glue real nice, and you're in good shape. I made sure those back ends are tucked together, and then I can't go from the top too well, but I can sort of make sure that they're touching the formers where they're supposed to, and squeezing along the length of the gray again to make sure I got good adhesion. And then you've got the front hull piece color with the L127 that goes on there. When I was little, my dad had a book with a drawing of this airplane, and I thought the cross on the front was a little mouth. When you look at it, it looked like a little mouth of some kind. I thought it was really cool. Only much later did I realize, oh, that's just the cross marking. But anyway, I was 6. What are you gonna do? So you put this on. Again, this goes right up. There's no seam, and the seam that's there looks fine. It looks like it's supposed to be there. I assume it is. Making sure, again, I'm flush on the top, right along the cockpit edge. And then I smooth it down and put those pieces together so I get my nice thick skin on there. And then the next thing we'll do basically is going to be put the nose in. And there I am with my ever-loving tweezers squeezing the edges down. Again, hoping for good adhesion of the glue, most of which I can get in there easily. And again, if there's edges that need to be painted or something, I can touch those up when it comes time. So I couldn't help myself. I just kept on moving. It was working really well. I, at this point, couldn't believe it. So I started gluing things. I glue that bulkhead and then also the edges around the formers for the rest of it, all the way around, because all these things get into contact. I slid this in, kind of splayed the paper out, slid it in where it's supposed to go, and then I just sandwiched and squeezed those pieces in there just like that. And even the nose came together really well. It's quite even. I mean, there's a little piece I might have to work on, but I think it's going to be just fine. Putting the bottom pieces on is probably going to be trickier because that's where there's some strange shapes underneath there, especially where that cross is, where everything has to line up just so. But I think it'll work. But you can see I'm just kind of squeezing it, making sure that it touches everything and adheres, and making sure it's smooth. And yeah, it's just a joy to work with because it just starts coming together and it just looks so neat. Oh, it's going to be a nice big airplane. It's going to be really nice. Look nice from the ceiling. But there, I haven't glued that front end yet because I'm going to wait for the bottom to see if I need to do any kind of tweaking or adjustments or whatever. Because that's okay. So I didn't really glue the tip in quite yet. Just making sure, using your fingers to turn things over, making sure you've got a good adhesion where you're supposed to, especially along that curve because you don't want that to twang out. And there's a little opening there, a little white, but we'll see what happens. And again, I thought I'd be done, but I'm like, well, this is working. So I did cut off the top decking. I put a little curve in there, and there's a little curve that has to go around the back, and I'm just kind of finding where that is. And I'll curve that, pre-curve that with a piece of brass here, just like that top piece I did. That's so those things will already fit where they're supposed to. So I bring this around like we make curves all the time. And then I started adding my glue along here and along the edges, all the way down. And I glued this on, and then I didn't do the very ends until a little bit later, just because this flat part, once I get this on, then I can play with the back end. Again, I smear this out a little bit because what I don't want to do is have clumps of glue show through the skin because it's supposed to be flat wood, right? Plywood, so it has to be. You don't want little things, places where you can see it adhering. You want it to be smooth, like a piece of wallpaper or something. So there's the curve I put in there, and that just goes right up like so. Using my thumb and forefinger, I'm making sure it's even along the top keel, and then you just start carefully squishing it down. And I took a paintbrush handle and kind of put that up where that curve is, and then just kind of use that to sort of burnish it down onto that piece underneath. And looks really good. Um, even you guys can't see it, but it doesn't overlap. The edges look good. That's not me. That's just, I mean, I colored the pieces, but that's all the laser parts, and then the kit parts themselves are very clean. Really, so far, a nice kit. And then I put the glue on the back part there. Remember, this is already curled over, so it should fit okay, which it does. I pull it around and I squeeze it shut, making sure that it stays as good as possible. And dang, there it is. I mean, of course, not done. And the bottom's going to be the bugaboo. But boy, it just looks so neat. So these are the parts that go underneath, and those are the parts I guess we'll try to show next. They could be fun. And then these parts, that top piece that's gray, it goes on, I think, first along the top, and then that part there goes on the top first, because you can see where the formers are, and then the wooden piece will go over top of that. And that should end up looking like that. So, boy, if I get that on and the bottom part, we are off to the races.